This is the School Success Podcast, a podcast for school leaders to learn from other school leaders what's working and what's not, and to get inspiration and encouragement, as well as strategies to grow school enrollment, connect with families, retain teachers, recruit teachers, and everything in between. You guys are heroes, and I cannot thank you enough for pouring into this next generation that's coming behind us. My goal is you will take at least one thing away from every episode that you can take back to your school to make it better than it is right now. Please enjoy the School Success Podcast. Hey, school success makers. Today we're joined by my new friend Sandro out of beautiful British Columbia in Canada, and they're doing some awesome things. It's a private Christian school there. They have a lot of different classes and different things that the kids are attracted to there at the Christian school that they offer, like robotics and woodworking. He mentions that on the podcast in a little bit, but they're doing some super cool things. And obviously, as I mentioned on all the different episodes, I want you guys to take at least one thing away from each episode you can take back to your school. And he shares some really good ones around fundraising and what they've done to bring in more resources and funds to the school. And he also talks a little bit of just the day-to-day life of running a Christian private school in Canada. So I won't bug you anymore. Just listen to the episode. It's coming up in just a few moments on the School Success Podcast. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the School Success Podcast. I'm your host, Mitchell Slater. I'm joined by a new friend out of Canada, Kamloops, British Columbia. He is the CEO, which we're going to dive into that in a second, of Kamloops Christian School. They're in beautiful BC, and we're going to dive into a whole bunch of things about education and their school and what it's like running a Christian school in Canada. But I don't want to take any thunder away from Sandro. So Sandro, welcome to the podcast. Please introduce yourself.
Awesome. I am super excited and stoked to be here, Mitchell. Thank you very much. Yeah, my name is Sandro Cuzzetto. I am the CEO for Kamloops Christian School. Honored to be on this podcast. I have kind of listened to a few of the previous podcasts as well, so very excited to share whatever I can with everybody that's listening.
Awesome. Well, I love to start off by just learning about the area the person's from. I've been to Canada a few times, driven through it a couple times, but I've never been to Kamloops before. So tell me about the city and British Columbia and what it's like living in Canada.
Well, I'd love to. So this Kamloops it's my home, and I say that kind of in realistic fashion, not just an area that I moved to. I was actually born and raised here. So I think there's a few of us. There's a club maybe, there's t-shirts, I have no idea. But I am one of the rare ones that was born in the same city and have stayed here. I did look around a little bit when I was young to move to the coast of Vancouver, the big city. I'll be real honest, the driving there just made me turn around and come back home. I was like, this is crazy. Kamloops has about 110,000 people, so it's not really big. We live in it's a valley area, so beautiful weather. We have all of the seasons, but definitely our summers get really hot and warm, and I love that. So we're right next to a river. One of the best things about Kamloops is I could probably drive 15 minutes in any direction and be in a whole different area. I could be up a mountain. 15 minutes west, I'd be out on a lake somewhere. I could be up. We have Sun Peaks, one of the big ski areas. So for us, we have skiing in the winter, and it's a 15-20 minute drive to one of the like Whistler type of aspects. So it's a beautiful area. It's one of the reasons I've stayed here is the city is just super nice to live in. Great family environment as well. And yeah, this is Kamloops. So very, very happy to still be a Kamloopsian.
Very cool. Well, what is the attraction for Kamloops for is there a big tourist destination? What's the driver of the economy there as well?
Yeah, so what do we have? I think we are the tournament capital of BC. In other words, we have a lot of sports. So my school, as a matter of fact, is right next to Mac Park. MacArthur Park has a big arena in it, curling areas, skating areas, big track and field spots, I think 6 soccer fields and things like that. So there's definitely a lot of sports. And I think people that live in Kamloops love to get outside, love to do some sports, keep active, things like that. And so that probably attracts a lot of people here. There's a pulp mill, so you have that aspect of renewable resources that is a part of Kamloops community. Railroads, things like that would be two of your bigger economic growth areas. There's also a university, and that actually over the past 10 or 15 years has definitely changed in the demographics here. We have a lot of students, and our university, Thompson River University, is, if I'm not mistaken, the the university in Canada that has the most international students, percentage-wise. So there's a lot of people from all around the world that show up to Kamloops, and a lot of them show up again to ski, to go outside, to camp, to fish, and do all of those outdoor types of things. So those would be the attractions for Kamloops.
Canada always reminds me a lot of Alaska, where I grew up, because it's obviously up there where they are, and it's just very outdoorsy. People want to be outside. Well, maybe not everybody wants to be outside, but so that's awesome. And I wanted to ask, or for anybody listening who obviously maybe not familiar with Canada and all the different provinces and where they're located, how far, I know you're right above the state of Washington, but how long, if you were to drive straight to Washington state line, how long would that take you?
We were driving straight, an hour and a half to 2 hours, as the Eagle flies. It's 3 hours to Vancouver, which we're driving south and kind of east a little or west a little bit. So definitely it takes a little more time because you're kind of driving that way. But if we were going straight down, about an hour and a half, 2 hours straight down.
Okay, so not far at all. Well, I think it's the perfect time to segue into the school. I would love to hear about your school, how long you've been there, what the role of a CEO at a Christian school kind of encompasses. I'm assuming there's still, of course, a principal and maybe even a assistant principal and some other roles at the school. So kind of give me the breakdown of how you guys are structured. So if there's other private schools or anybody else listening, they kind of get an idea of what you guys are doing and what's working for you.
Yeah, fantastic. And I will preface this by saying our school layout is actually a little bit different than a lot of the private or independent schools in BC, especially with the CEO model. So let me go back. First question, how long have I been here? Believe it or not, this would be my 27th year coming up at the school. I started as just as a teacher, not just as a teacher, but actually I think I started, if I'm being really honest, I think I started as a learning assistant or teacher in a resource room somewhere. And then moved to high school. I was I think I did some middle school work as well, way back 20 some odd years ago. I'm a computer tech, network tech. I have a telecom communications background, so I used to work for telephone companies, satellite companies. So I have that kind of tech bend. So when the school first hired me as a teacher, I did the teaching, and then they realized, well, this guy could actually run our network. So then I became the network tech at the school for a while, and the network admin, and set up all the computers. Did that for kind of 50-50. So did that for about 50% of the time and taught mostly computer courses. I also have a Bachelor of Ed, but a Bachelor of Arts in English. So I'm an English major. So then they got me teaching English as well. So I've kind of changed. And actually, that has kept me going because my job every 5 or 6 years, I'd kind of have something different I was doing. So it's like, hey, why don't you take this one on now? Oh yeah, this will be great. And then I was kind of learning and really getting into that. I went to get a master's in education, specifically not at all for administration. And people listening might go, well, he was kind of moving into the administration line, obviously, because he'd been teaching for a while. Not necessarily so. I wanted to get a master's in ed just to be a better teacher. You kind of get to a spot as a teacher probably after 15 years, something like that, where you're just spinning your wheels and it just feels like, okay, I'm back at work again. Oh, I'm doing the same courses I was doing before. Even if they give you a different course, you're kind of tackling it all about the same way. So I just decided, I think it's time. I want to just see what else there is and maybe really improve my teaching, get some different ideas. And I knew that you here had a lot of international flavor, so I was very curious to see if I would have students from other countries or different provinces that would be a part of the school or part of the cohort. And there was. I met some great teachers from Germany, China, Japan, made some connections to what's school like in New Zealand. And actually that one really impacted me a lot. I loved the New Zealand aspect of flexible learning spaces, project-based learning, and a lot of things that were happening there. So that just really excited me as a teacher. And I started incorporating all of that stuff into my classes. And I was pumped. I was ready to stay as believe it or not, I think at that point I was doing science. My favorite course to teach was Science 9. I'm an English major with a tech background. I was teaching this Science 9, but there was so much PBL, there was so much project-based stuff that you could do, and so many experiments. I think I got in trouble from some of the other teachers next door to me because it was noisy. Like we had a lot of fun doing it. And at the same time, I think the next teacher that took Science 10 got mad at me because they were like, you're doing way too many projects. I don't have that many experiments. What are you doing? Like every week we'd be doing a different experiment. Anyway, this is going somewhere, just so that you've got it. But so started doing that, and that's where I wanted to stay. Then an opportunity showed up for me to take a vice principal role. So I took that and started getting into the administration role. But I didn't want to do this job that I'm doing now. I actually didn't know exactly what it was. I thought school administration was vice principals, do some discipline work, things like that, and I really enjoyed the teaching. So it took a gentleman who was my mentor to get me into the administration role, and his line to me when we first started talking was, Sandro, I don't think you really know what administration is. I think you got some great ideas, and I think there's teachers that want to hear what you've tried to do, and I think you can actually help them to get there. So I reluctantly took an administration role, and it was a classic role. In the independent schools in BC, there is this kind of principal head of school role. So you're the principal, and you have all of the principal's jobs, but at the same time you do a little bit of business stuff here and there. And we have a board of directors that kind of takes, a fair amount of some of those other roles. Our job, or what started to happen, was we started to grow very quickly. So we've probably been growing as a school at a click of about 7 to 8% growth every year for the past 6 or 7 years. So our population started to get bigger and bigger. There's a lot as to why that was happening, but it basically got to the point where it's like, okay, I now can't be a full-time principal and run capital campaigns, fundraising, and do budgeting, and you were almost like a superintendent and principal at the same time. So last year, for the first time, we split this role, and I took on the name of CEO, executive officer of the corporation. So we have a daycare, we have a school, K-12, we have renters that rent out parts of our building, and I do a lot of the marketing, budgeting, promotion stuff. And I have a full-time principal. She's a K-12 principal, incredible lady, and she works as well. She has some vice principals, but we actually, again, went down a bit of a different road and decided instead of the VP role, we wanted more of that learning leader model, where the vice principal works more with the teachers in helping them to mentor or become better teachers. And kind of our thought is that if the classroom and if the teaching is really, really good, a lot of those issues that you might actually see that a VP would deal with might actually disappear. And lo and behold, they actually do. If if the students are really feeling engaged and things are going well, a lot of them are staying on task. You don't get that much of the discipline aspect of things. So for us, this past year has been a blast. We've enjoyed it. We will see how it goes over the next couple of years, but that's everything about our school. That's the layout.
Man, so I love that. I actually love that you guys split it, because I think that it gets to the point, and again, you know more about schools than I do, of course, but if the principal, like you said, is handling all those different pieces, they're not doing, I feel like, in my opinion, most important part of being over the students and the teachers, that's so important, but also the business side of things is also important. So it's like, that's a lot to juggle for one person. So I do agree splitting it up like you guys did. How big, I know you said you guys have grown, how many students are you at, and is there a cap, or could you continue to grow at 10%, and you're just going to add another building? I mean, how does that look for growth?
Yeah, Mitchell, you should come and talk to my board, because tonight, as a matter of fact, is when we need to talk a little bit about it. We are maxed. Can we grow any further? Pretty much no. We have listed all of our classes, and if we were 100% full at our rate, of, let's say, I think we max out at 26 kids for a high school student, or, grade 8 or 9. We maxed every classroom. We would be, I think, 372 students. We're 330 right now. And of course, families don't come with, hey, I've got a 1 grade 4, here you go, or 1 grade. They come as groups, like I have a grade 4 and a grade 2, or a grade 3. Oh, sorry, we're full in grade 4, but we have room in grade, well, we can't come because we want both kids. So for the most part, we are probably about 10% from being as maxed as we could be. And I think for almost any corporation, if that's where you're riding at this point, you need a plan to move forward, because you're just going to be hitting that wall every year, and eventually people will just start turning away. So we definitely have a lot to talk about, and you mentioned it. Are we starting another wing? Are we building? What are we doing? So there's definitely some excitement for us that we need to talk through, but we have no plans yet. So it's just talk at this point.
You guys have even the land like that you're on, is it big enough to add on, or you have to move?
Yeah, no, we've got a big land area. Well, we've got two areas. So our school's on one field area, and then we have a soccer field right next to us. So, and the lands are identical. They're pretty much the same space. So I know one of the talks that we've talked about and people have said is you could just build on your field, build a whole new school building right next door while you're keeping your building going, and then when it's done, tear this one down and make this the soccer field. So there is a potential for us to kind of do some things. But our building, one of the things about our building that we don't want to change, or at least at this point isn't up for change, is we have a lot of those extra rooms. So we're an independent school, we're kind of competing a little bit with public schools. There isn't another Christian school in our area, so for us, we have all of the churches and all of the people that want to come to this school from every denomination come to this school. This is like their school. So, but we are kind of competing, and for us, we do have those band rooms, art rooms. We have a theater. It's a beautiful theater. We have an outdoor ed program. We have a lot of things that we actually do that other schools have shut down. So take an art room. Hey, we got a lot of kids coming. Well, we're just going to have to change the art room into a classroom. We have held back on that because what's happening is families are coming for those things. We have a maker space, a wood shop, a metal shop, a robotics lab, computers, 3D printing. We have this whole big area where you can make things. Well, that's actually a big part of our school now. So for me to tear that down and say, well, yeah, we could fit another 100 kids in there, you're actually going to lose your programming. You're going to lose the thing that is getting people to your school. So we are definitely at that spot where it's like, no, we just need classrooms, but we want to do that in a way that doesn't take away from the programming that we already have.
Oh, man, that's awesome. You guys have a ton of awesome programs like robotics and the wood shop. Oh my gosh.
It is so much fun though. Like and my background has that. As I said, I was a network tech and a computer tech. So I know that students, books work, worksheets, all of that. I have no issue with the classic education style. But I think your very first podcast, Morgan Easter, I think, was talking a little bit about PBL. And so we took that to the nth degree. In BC, we have a new curriculum about 5-6 years ago that came out. And that curriculum really took a lot of ideas from some of the other provinces. And it's very much, it's so easy to do project-based learning within the curriculum that our school just decided this is the direction we want to go. So for me to have a makerspace, as we call it, a makerspace, that allows students to show their, oh man, let's be really honest, the math and the physics that happen in a wood shop and metal shop in comparison to just a classic, math, like that is huge for a kid. They can show me, yeah, I get radius, I get, this, and I get it because I can actually use it in this situation. Yeah. They might not necessarily be able to do it super well on a piece of paper at times, but they can show it to me. And so, what are you assessing, right? Are you assessing their ability to write it on a piece of paper, or are you assessing their ability to actually use the product or use the information? So we have this opportunity where we have students that are just thriving in that metal and wood shop. That is where they are, and they just love doing the stuff that they're doing. Completely artistic as well. They can show art right there. They can do a lot of things in that area, and yet in the classic style, they might not be able to, or at least not to the same degree. So we definitely have a lot going on, but I think that's important. Everybody's different. Everybody's got different gifts and talents. Everybody has to be able to succeed at school in some fashion. And I think if you have a school or a building that has all of those areas where a student can come and showcase, here's what makes me me, and here's what I'm really good at, then I think you have a good school.
Yeah, and I'm a hands-on learner, so I know I would have been all over that stuff. I know when I was homeschooled my whole life, so my mom knew, and I loved money stuff. So when she when I was learning how to count and do stuff, she got the real checkbook out and real cash and coins, and I was like, ooh, it was way more fun than trying to do it in a book with imaginary paper coins. I was just I don't know, I was drawn to the hands-on. So much more. So I love that. And you're the first guest I've had on that's been with a Christian school. And my wife went to a Christian school her whole life. And obviously I've been raised in church. I've been a youth pastor in my life. So even more questions for you, I feel than other guests sometimes. So are you guys, and I'm thinking no from what you already said, but are you guys connected with one church? It's you are a church's school, or no?
No. And as a matter of fact, that is also, it's interesting to me to watch this school after 27 years become what it's become now, because I really see a lot of the same things that have happened in the past even fit into that Christian aspect of things. So when I said, everybody's different, I think that actually is an important Christian concept. I don't think God wouldn't make robots. Like, we're not exactly the same. And I think there's a purpose to that. So for your school to have all of those issues or those areas so that students can actually learn differently or showcase their knowledge, their God-given gifts, I think that's important. When it comes to our school in proper, we're not a church school. So the history of this school is that 6 different denominations actually came together in 1985. Some of them were running their own little schools and running something I think was called ACE. I don't know if it was Alternative Christian Education, I think. And it was literally just put a kid on a table, here's the book, and you're kind of working through it. I think some schools were kind of working on, or some churches were doing that separately. And they realized that there was about 3 or 4 others that were doing the same thing. So then the pastors actually got together and said, look, what are we doing? Maybe if we want a school, well, let's all get together and let's build this school. So they did. So those 6 churches kind of got together and created Christian School Association, which is what we are. And the interesting thing is they are so different. Like, there's a Baptist, there's a Pentecostal, there's full gospel. They don't agree on anything. Like, they literally, none of these guys get along when it comes to their doctrine. But they did want one thing. They wanted a school. And so our statement of faith is very foundational statements. So you could be full gospel, Baptist, Pentecostal, Catholic, anybody in that Christian genre wouldn't have an issue with what we teach. We stay down those denominational lines. And there's probably more of a partnership. So, you said you were a youth pastor. Well, your church would have a job to do. This is what our denomination teaches. This is what we believe in. And you're teaching that to your students. Your parents have a job. Yes, we want to go to this church. We want this type of thing. That's their job. Our school has a job. These are the foundational teachings of Christianity, and we will teach that to all students, and we won't step on anybody's toes. And everybody has their jobs to do, and if we do it together, then we're raising a child in the way that they should go. That's kind of the belief. So I love it that it is that type of, not a church school, just so many different denominations, so many different people. And at the same time, maybe the next question would be, is it an open admission? Everybody comes. So you don't have to have that faith background to be at our school. And we have lots of families that are here that actually don't come for that, or at least are okay that we're teaching that. They're coming for something else. And again, it could be the makerspace. It could be our athletic director. It could be our outdoor ed program or outdoor program. We do an outdoor K program. Again, we live in Kamloops, beautiful spot. So for us to do an outdoor kindergarten, fantastic. So we have a lot of those different programs that you won't see at public schools in the area, and that's what's attracting those people to our school.
Well, I know from talking with you, things are going, sounds like awesome, but I'm sure there are challenges. As I know, I ask everybody that's on the podcast some of the challenges. If you could share, and it could be 1, it could be 3, but what are some of the challenges you guys are currently up against, or you personally are up against with running the school, and how are you guys fighting those and getting through those?
Yeah, and I'm excited about the school, and I love this spot, but at the same time, you're right, there's always challenges. Number one, right now, it is connected though with the growth, is trying to find teachers, trying to find staff. So again, my role now, kind of away from the educational part of it, is where are we finding these people? And there is a lot of people that are just not jumping back into the workplace. And post-COVID, there's so many people that have talked about the impact of COVID on the workforce. Yeah, definitely schools see it. My wife's a nurse. She sees it up at our local hospital. They are struggling to try to find enough people or enough doctors. And it's not that those people don't exist. There are lots of people in Kamloops that we know that are actually teachers. They have their Bachelor of Ed, they've got their certification. They just don't want a full-time teaching role, or they don't want a teaching role at all, or they want something else. And so that's one challenge, is just trying to find people. The second thing as well, I think COVID has really hurt the community feel. So one of the things where our school, and maybe your wife who'd been at a Christian school as well, one of the things that people look at when they go to an independent school is it might not be as big, as a full-blown high school. So our high school, for example, locally, we have about 2,000 students in our bigger high school. Again, we're K-12, we have about 330, like I said. So it's definitely a smaller community. And it doesn't, but there's also this community feel. So everybody wants to be here. People, obviously, they pay a tuition to come to an independent school in BC, but they're looking for that community aspect where everybody's together. Some of these families see each other again at church. They see each other here. They're part of our Parents Action Committee. They're part of whatever. There's a lot more community feel. Smaller class sizes, more adults per student. So you have that aspect of we're together. Lots of staff and families have said it almost feels a bit like a family where everybody really knows each other. That's great, but over the past 2.5 years, that's been lost. You haven't allowed people to be in your building, right? You can't have guests in, you don't have families coming in. Kids are dropped off, they come in with masks, they leave, all of those things. So that's going to be a struggle moving forward for us. Moving forward for the next couple of years is how do we get that back? And what do we need to do? So we've got some ideas, but that's a struggle for us right now. How do we get our larger school to feel like a cohesive community?
Has fundraising been an issue too for COVID? For the year, I know you guys probably, as a private school, you thrive off of course the tuition that's coming in from the students, but I'm assuming you guys are probably doing a lot of fundraisers and have successful ones. What kind of things? Because I asked that to a couple other guests to give people ideas for fundraisers. Like what's working for you guys in that realm?
Yeah, fantastic. First, really good news for us is that when I first took over the job, it was one of the things that we realized was we're a not-for-profit. Like we're an NFP as an independent school. So we're not a money-making machine. And schools don't really make money. I mean, you can have 25 kids show up, but 70% of that output is going to be salaries and overhead. And so you're not really making money as a school. That's not the idea. And it's not even our mission or vision. So if you want to make some changes, let's say, create this makerspace. Hey, this is great, but somebody's got to fund it. And it ain't coming out of your tuition. It ain't coming out of your government grants. So we did a fundraiser. I thought it was the most ridiculous thing we'd ever done as a school ever. It was a capital campaign. That in itself is great. Lots of schools do them. So basically you're going out and saying, hey, people, we want to build, and it's capital, so we need to fundraise. That wasn't ridiculous. What was ridiculous is the amount to me. This school has probably raised $8,000 to $10,000 every year, just with small fundraisers like we did silent auctions, we've sold cookie dough, different things that the kids have done. So on average, that's kind of the fundraising. I went to the board and said, we want to build a new library, we want tech up, and we want this makerspace started in flexible learning spaces. Preliminary, I came up to a number that was $250,000, $250,000. Of course, we all looked at each other and went, we've never, that's impossible. After actually talking to the building manager or building people, was like, it's actually going to be closer to $350,000. Wow, that's not, we can't do it. Well, let's give it a shot. We raised $685,000. And we all kind of went, how did this happen? Seriously, Mitchell, there are people that would bring in checks of $150,000. Like, I believe in what you guys are doing. This is amazing. I've never seen a check with that many zeros in my life. I didn't even know what to do. I'm handing it almost like, on both palms to the accounting office. Look at this. I don't know this is crazy. But we loved it. And it was so much excitement. And we had so many families that wanted to pitch in. And that started the ball rolling. So fundraising, yes, if you have a vision and you have something that you want to do and you can get people excited about it, you don't worry about it. You just go do it. And it will happen. There are people, they're looking to give to something that they believe in. And let's be honest, we all believe in education. This is our own kids. We'll give anything for the best education for our students. And so that happened. Since then, obviously with COVID, no, we haven't done a capital campaign. We've got a big plan coming up at some point. The board will be looking and probably will be doing something again. But one of the things that we found out as well is even an easy raffle. Raffles are great, and lots of local corporations and people will donate. Yeah, we'll give what was it? I think it was, I don't know if I'm allowed to do this, but we'll give a kudos out to West. West gave us, something for a raffle. Here's a free trip, just about anywhere we fly. So we have that in a raffle. Well, we definitely, every parent, and we sold out of the tickets. So it was an easy way to make about $15,000, $16,000 for our school. So raffles work. But again, there's that aspect of you don't want to overdo it. Right? And at the same time, you need to have a purpose for it. So what are we going to do with it? Well, we can definitely see some areas of our school that need some improvement. And at this point, with the growth, we're going to need to go back out again and say, guys, look at what's happened. look at where we are and look at where we can be in 5 or 6 years. And we're going to need your help to get there. And your kids are here already. So can you help us out? And I think those corporations, I think that's a key too, is getting those corporations involved and saying, yeah, we can partner with you and do this and do some things a little differently. I'll share one thing, if you've got a second, that we do that it can only seemingly be done at our school in our local division, because I think there's a rule that goes against it at the public schools, but we sell out our board in our gym. So on the wall in the gym, we have companies that give X amount for kind of a partnership. So they'll give cash to the school that we can then use to, let's say, upgrade our gym or upgrade our sports department. And we put their logo up on our gym and say, thanks to our sponsor. It seems like we're the only school that can actually do it in the area. But that, for us, that's another great way for us to partner with companies and to do something that maybe you wouldn't be able to see somewhere else. So little things like that. This year we've made about $80,000 in fundraising.
You guys are kicking butt, and you gave good ideas that I haven't heard from schools yet that they're doing for fundraisers. So I'm hoping those that are listening are like, I never thought about doing that one. You're like, I need one of those $150,000 checks from somebody in the community.
That check, that was a genius move by the gentleman that did it as well, because he had some property that he was then building some cabins on, and he basically gave the amount that he made from there to the school. So it was one of those things where he had the idea that then helped out the school. So again, that the corporation, that aspect of getting to know partnerships with different businesses and different people who run businesses, I think is important. And also one of the reasons we moved away from the principal school superintendent role to a CEO. And so I take care of that stuff, and our principal can take care of the ed part. So I can really focus on that.
Sweet. Well, obviously finishing up those with the challenges, it's the perfect segue into my favorite part, and usually the guest's favorite part. This is where you get to brag about your school. So share some of the things. I know we've already been talking about also the things that are going really good, but are there any others, 1, 2, 3 things that are just like, oh, these are awesome. Like, these are so good at our school right now?
Yeah, I could talk about a few things for sure. I will again preface this whole thing by saying I just got good people too. We went out and hired really good teachers and people who have a little bit of forward-thinking knowledge with respect to even their own classrooms or their own courses. So let's talk about the outdoor kindergarten program. That is one of the biggest things that we do at our school. We have families that come just for that. So we are about 50% outside, 50% inside with our kindergarten. We created an outdoor classroom just right outside our own building. And we are right next to Mac Park, which I think I mentioned before. So Mac Park is an island. It's a huge island, kind of a big area. It would take to walk the island, I think it's about a 45-minute walk to go around the outside of it. So it's not massive, but it's definitely big enough that if you bring a kindergarten class out there and kind of show them around, there's a lot of ecology out there. There's beavers, deer, there's a lot of different animals. There's ecosystems that just kind of exist on that island, soccer fields. There's fitness equipment out there that the city's actually put out. So it's a great spot. So our kindergarten kids, and we'll start with the kindergarten kids, they go out there, that's almost their second classroom. So especially in the spring, fall, they've kind of learned a little bit about how outdoor education can be, what it means for them and how they can learn from outside, and we've done that locally. Then they go to Mac Park, and they go there probably at least once a week, if not twice a week. And the lessons that they cover out there they fulfill the K curriculum, but way more. I still remember one of the first ones where a teacher went out and said, hey, here we are, we're going to look for animals. And this one kid was looking at animal prints, in all these different animal prints. And they're like, I wonder what animal made that print. Well, the teacher was smart enough to go, actually, that's a good question. Now, this is inquiry-based, right? So now we're doing inquiry learning. Well, what do you think it is? Do you think it's big? Do you think it's small? Oh, I think it's this. And of course, the other kids are all playing out. So, the next day, the kids would come into their kindergarten class and she'd have pictures of all these animals on the wall and their footprints, but they'd all be mixed up. Well, which animal do you think made this or that? Oh, I think it's this one. So then the next day they go back outside. Well, let's see if we can find that animal. So they go outside. Oh, there it is. It's that type of, and look at they live out in the tree and, like a squirrel or something. Oh, look at their home. What do you think of it? So now the kids you had about 3 kids that were just into squirrels for like the next 3 weeks, but they wanted to learn everything about squirrels. Not a problem. Let's do it. The kindergarten program was, learn about ecosystems or learn that, different things have different habitats. Well, you've taken that like to the nth degree now. One parent came to me and said, I don't know why, but my kid understands bird legs. loves the idea of how legs on birds are. And that would not have happened if they didn't get so excited about a bird that they saw on our Wonder Walk program, that's what we call it, out in Mac Park. So the learning just is exponential when you do an outdoor program. So I'll leave you with that one. There's a lot, as I said, of different little programs that we just are super excited about, but our Wonder Walk program is one of them.
Love it. Well, as we wrap up with the same question that I ask every guest that's been on here. If you were to leave anybody who's listening with a piece of advice or thing, I wish I knew this when I first started, or whatever, literally could be whatever you want it to be, what would that thing be for you?
Be different. There's one school that I've actually modeled our school after, and it's down in the States. And basically this man, when he, if he doesn't do it on purpose, but if, the public school system's like, I'll give you the example. I think he had said, there's an eclipse happening. We're going to see an eclipse. And of course, all the other schools are like, okay, kids are staying inside and nobody's going out. Instead, this guy went the opposite way and said, we're going to buy everybody glasses so that we can all have our students go out and take a look at the eclipse, safely. We're going to do it this way. So he went, he got all the eclipse glasses, brought the kids out, took pictures. That's what's in the paper. Oh, look at all these kids learning about eclipses. So now for the next 2 weeks, you're learning about astronomy in all of your classes or whatever it is. It became kind of a little bit of a unit. But he decided to do that because it just seemed like everybody was going one direction. And he, as an independent school, wanted to, no, I don't think that's A, either good ed, or B, it's definitely, there's an opportunity here, almost a reverse marketing opportunity. So he took it and decided to go down that road. For us at my school, I think we've done a lot of that, and I'm not looking for those examples that we're going to be completely different, but instead I want to know what's the best education that we can give our students. And regardless of what's actually happening out there, push to that. Give people a vision and a mission and say, this is what our vision actually is. The best education. We want to be the best school in BC and a leader in education in Canada. That is actually part of our mission statement. To do that, we've got to push in some directions that maybe other schools either aren't willing to push or won't push. But do it. That would be the thing I'd leave to everybody. Don't be afraid. Shoot for the moon. Just go for it.
Solid. I love it. Sandro, thank you so much again for taking the time to be on the podcast. I can tell that you are passionate about education. You're passionate about students. I can see it in your face and your voice and your smile when you're talking about it. So I love what you're doing. I love what you are there to minister to these kids and love on these kids there. So please keep doing what you're doing and encouraging your staff. And I'm wishing you guys, of course, nothing but the best as you continue to grow and conquer the British Columbia area over there.
Awesome. And you as well. Great work on the podcast, by the way. I'm now a follower, so I'll be looking forward to future podcasts.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Well, another huge shout out and a thank you to Sandro for taking time and being on the podcast. I had a blast talking with him and learning about different fundraising that they're doing, the classes that they offer. They're doing some sweet stuff. And I'm like, man, that would have been a cool school to go to if I lived in Canada and if I was in school still. But now I'm old. But I know there's some kids that are getting a great education there, that are getting the resources and the foundation that they need to be successful going on. So just a huge shout out to them. They're doing awesome. So please keep it up. And as always, guys, I want you to be able to take at least one thing from the podcast today, take it back to your school to make it better than it is right now. And what I love about this podcast and the guests that are on here, you got Christian schools, charter schools, public schools, all these different schools, and we can all learn from each other to make our schools better. And that's what I want for this podcast. So I'm hoping you guys are able to do that. If you guys need help growing enrollment, connecting better with your families with technology and digital marketing, you can check us out online, schoolmakers.com. We'd love to hear from you. We'll be here next week with another awesome guest, as usual, on the School Success Podcast. We'll see you then.